This patch is probably the worst balance patch that I could have imagined that they did. And by the end of this video, I think that you'll probably agree with me, but I wanted to talk about this because I think that it's important to give shit where shit is due, but also give credit where credit's due, which is why I'm going to be splitting my opinion on the notes that came out today into two different videos. This one is going to be focusing on the one that I think most people care about, which is the balance adjustments, and then we will make a different video talking a little bit about this change here, which has new characters in it, as well as other bug fixes and stuff like this as well. This balance patch scares me for the future of the game. I was already pretty iffy on the game after everything that's happened, and yeah, this one definitely makes me worried about, do the devs actually know what's going on in their game? What data are they getting? And I think this looks really bad. And I want to start off by prefacing that I'm not a turn one player. I'm not a rev kind of spammer. I'm very much turn two pilled. You can see here I have like ER, what is it, ER there. I'm an ER Sonya player. I'm building like the fuck you, though she doesn't have gear on right now because I was using some for PvP. For PvE. I have the Tiamat, I have the Rahu, and I have the Holden. They're all very, very much built for turn two. So I'm someone who's pivoting to turn two, and I've been doing that for a while. And that is pretty much the thing that I need to just get out of the way, because we're going to start off with the thing that's the juiciest on this patch, which is the nerf here to Revelation, which kind of kicks it off. So if you don't know, they decided to, and I'll quickly make this a little bit bigger, they decided to nerf Revelation, and the way they did it was actually pretty creative. I think it's a good showcasing of the fact that they can do it in different ways, which is in the PvP mode, there's a Etheria effect, which is, you can see like you click on it, it tells you like after a certain amount, every time that you take, I think it's like 20 turns, this damage reduction effect goes down. This is just to help kind of stop cleave already, but with that, Revelation was not affected by it because it was true damage, but now it is now affected by the 30% damage dealt, which, by the way, they still can't even spell check their stuff properly. Really professional, XD. Can we please improve on this? It's not that hard. It really isn't that hard. We're asking for the bare minimum here. But yeah, this is quite a large nerf. 30% is a sizable chunk to nerf damage. Mostly when they also did, and I'll quickly just showcase it here, they also did a bug fix towards, oh no, it's here at the bottom, where it will no longer be triggered by damage from shells. So this did work with true damage on Revelation. It worked with stuff like Jackal, White Fang for Ting, because he would do his S3 into S2, and this is why the Jackal was so good on his final hit, because it would do the hits, and it would get the full advantage of Kenai. Slightly nerfed to that, not too big of a deal, but overall this is going to be a huge amount of damage that is being taken away from Revelation, and there's a lot of people that are affected by this. Now I understand that a lot of people have really strong opinions about Revelation, but you have to understand that how this game is structured is that there is pretty much 3 different archetypes. So we'll just jump back into the game here. In the 3 different archetypes, you have your Rev characters. These are really fast, aggressive openers. They pretty much punish anyone who doesn't have access to really strong turn 2. Strong turn 2 is people that have access to Bloodbath and Lighthouse, which is a really good counter because you're going to be able to survive because Bloodbath is super broken, giving you a 55% damage reduction if it exceeds 20% of your max HP. And on top of that, it also works for every single hit after, so it's reducing all of that and multiplying the damage reduction, which makes it really broken. And then you're also healing for a bunch, and then you're pushing and you're cutting them, and this gives you a chance to disrupt their strategy, right? And this is why, if we take a look at what the arena results are by the end, so where are we here? We'll go to leaderboard. You can already see here that a lot of the people at the top, sure, right now they're cleavers because it's just week 1. But you can see here, even I moved to like turn 2. We see a bunch of turn 2 here. And in Summon Arena, this is the final results. You can see here, let's take a look at what the top players were using. We have a turn 2 player, Yeon, who we're going to be talking a bit about because I think he is the strongest kind of like example that people have of why Rev needed to get nerfed, but at the same time, it wasn't that crazy. Turn 2 player, turn 2 player, turn 2 player. Kecker is a control player, and we're going to talk about that. Watch on, you can see here, he's a little bit of a hybrid player. He's picking stuff like Linglo a lot, which could be to take away from them, but he's more of a control player with Lilith. Turn 2 player. This is like someone who probably could be a you know, we'll give him benefit of the doubt. Maybe this is like revelation spam here with this guy. Bach is a turn 2 player, control player with some mix. So this is probably a standard player, which doesn't really count. So we'll just remove him from the equation. Turn 2 player, turn 2. Well, what is this? This is like a cheese cleave player. Okay, sure. Technically, they also are getting hit by the Rev nerf because it doesn't just hit them, it also hurts users that are okay. They should be allowed to use it, which is your Messiah and your Yellies, right? Which are supposed to be tank busting units that are there for cleaving. It's okay for those characters to be strong with it, and now they're getting hit when they're not even meta. You can see here pretty much everyone, you know, even this is like a Bloodbath Yelly. I know this guy is on Bloodbath Yelly. Turn two, and I can just go through, even just looking through here, you can see there's way more people here that are turn 2 players or they're control players, and we're going to talk about that because that's important too. And the reason why control's here is because majority of the player base is turn 2 players, right? So control is supposed to counter turn 2, and more importantly, you can see there's only one player that is like very clearly a Rev abuser, right? Because Kecker is not a Rev abuser. I'll tell you that. He's in my guild, and I can tell you right now, he is not. This is not a Rev Obel. This is a cheesy Kraken. You know, like this is control. Okay, this is control too, right? So the only one here in the top, what is this, 10? Yeah, the only one that's in the top 10, besides maybe this guy, because I don't really know what he actually plays. Can we take a look at what he actually plays? Can we see his arena defense or whatever? No, we can't. But yeah, like in general here, you can see that majority of the players, even if we were to include him just by default, that means that 80%, well, sorry, about, what is this, 6 out of 10 of them were turn 2 players, 2 out of the 4, which is about the same as being 2 out of the 10 here, right? All this, so we have about 20% control, 20% Rev, 60% turn 2, but we nerfed Rev. It makes no sense when you look at the data just out of the top percentile. It just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up why they did it. So they must have been looking at data specifically at lower ranks, which is funny because a lot of people that I see arguing about it is like, you know, they're saying, oh, it just sounds like you're a low rank player, so therefore, you know, that's why you don't understand how Rev is broken. But the fact is that Rev is not really a problem in the higher ranks. It very much is a lower rank issue, and that is actually because people can't get access to stuff like Rango as easily. Rango and Aurora are the 2 toughest dungeons in the game for people to farm reliably and efficiently, and so therefore they're gatekeeping access to answers to Revelation, which means that they should have, instead of been doing this adjustment here, they should have been nerfing Rango instead to make him more accessible, but they chose not to. So yeah, this is why I think this is a terrible change, because everything that we see, ignoring the fact that it could be anecdotal, I just don't see it. I would love if they gave us the actual stats on this about how they're getting their stats, because they do claim to say that they've taken a look at the data to make these adjustments. I just think that this is a bunch of bullshit from what I'm seeing here, because I'm looking at the data that I have access to, which is saying that majority of the players are succeeding and countering the strategy. And another key thing to keep in mind here, and we'll just jump right back into the game again because it's a good example, is the balancing act between these different strategies. Because you can see here that if I play a bunch of these turn 2 characters, I have to survive. I have to survive the cleave because there's a lot of pressure coming in from Revelation, you know, characters like Yelly existing who can absolutely destroy people, and it's okay that they can do that. That's their job. So my opponent and me are doing the drafting, which is fine, but now I have to also make sure that my characters can survive. So I have to run Lighthouse on Tiamat. I have to run Lighthouse on you, and I have to run Lighthouse on my Sonya, and even like my Doki Doki would have to run it as well, right? All these have to be on Lighthouses, which is like, it's just as bad as me having everything on Rev, which is like one thing, but the other thing is the problem of now I don't need to do that. So now I can move away and go focus heavily on these ER strategies, as you can see here with an insight and everything. And, you know, if I do that, then all of a sudden, how am I supposed to deal with this Sonya or this Linglo? Linglo is actually more of a disgusting one because she doesn't even need HP like Sonya, and she can just have full effect res. And now if I have that, and this was maybe like the one that I had otherwise, which had all ER, well, this would be super, super problematic to deal with because she's just going to cleanse everyone forever. So now you can't even lock me down. And one thing is like Doki Doki, not very tanky. Doki Doki is not very tanky at all, and so you would have to run her on that. But now I can get away with like a really super whatever, like this is a bad Doki, it's just filler gear. But if I were to build this Doki properly, you know, now I don't even have to worry about it, right? I don't have to worry about anything besides having her on like Bloodbath and stuff, right? I don't need to worry about having Lighthouse. All of a sudden I can have, you know, the Jackal, I can have the Alicorn, I can have access to all these other options, which pretty much means that you're not going to have the counters to them, which is a lot of these CC units. Because what a lot of people do is they'll bring in units like Obol and stuff, and this is great because Obol will CC them. He also adds layer because he adds dots to them, and what this means is that now, on top of stunning you, those dots are not getting cleansed. But if I'm running, you know, Doki Doki, I can max this out and it'll start cleansing 3. So it doesn't matter if you land all the dots because you will also cleanse those as well. And even, you know, Alicorn would cleanse all 3 of them because now I'd be able to run that instead of this. So now what you're doing is you're actually breaking this trifecta that you've created in this balancing change, where now Revelation is not checking the control players and forcing the DPS players to exist. So it's this weird balancing act where either the effect resist side is not going to be good enough to actually make changes, right, to impact the turn 2 players, and then turn 2 is going to take over, or control is just going to be super disgusting. And, you know, control in a game is one of the most unfun things to play against, because at least in Rev you can go, well, I got outspeed, GG, there's nothing I can do. Against turn 2, you know, if you... it just sucks when you're sitting there, you know the game's over, and you're just praying for RG. It doesn't feel good from either side when you are turning around and you're like, oh, I missed a sleep that I should statistically hit, so now I lose the game when I was winning. And then from your side, you're like, oh, because he never gets destroyed by a 10% chance over all these hits, which means that eventually you should hit one, I just don't get to play the game. So it just adds a bunch of extra layers of frustration. So that's the first thing I don't understand. The second thing here that they did that I don't understand is the changes to characters like Holden. No one was saying Holden was weak. I don't know who thought Holden was weak, what data they have, but that's how I know their data is flawed. And they're just looking at the wrong pool, because everyone in this game knows, like, Holden is one of the best characters in this entire game right now, and they decided to buff him. Not only did they buff his chance to get like counterattack and extra damage increase, which is crazy, they also made it so now you don't have to run, like, you can go a lot, you know, less tanky. Like, you're probably still running Bloodbath on him because it's broken, but you don't have to worry too much about the other stuff, because, you know, now you don't need to have Lighthouse on him if you're trying to survive, right? Because, you know, before I was using my Holden with Lighthouse because I needed someone else that wasn't Tiamat to survive and win against Cleave, and he was like the best one that had that ability because he had the built-in Bramble, which means that he could counterattack, kill Yellies and stuff in the middle of their attack, so she wouldn't get her extra hits, and that was really impactful. Now I don't need to do that, so instead I can put him on an Artisan, which could increase his damage and survivability against other bruisery comps, and he's also going to be really good now with something like Jackal that can make him take more turns and also add more damage, because Jackal hurts. So, and that also means that he can have access to Bulwark and stuff, because he doesn't need to have as much defense to get the same value, right? I can probably remove my Unbreakable set off him, because right now I have Unbreakable 8 unlocked, but I could probably cut that for Bulwark and be very fine with that, mostly because I know that the only thing that I have to worry about now is not survivability so much, because I can just rely on Bloodbath now. I don't need the Lighthouse, is just making sure that I don't get controlled to death. So that is the issue, and why I think this is stupid that they did this. And then they also decided to increase his damage as well. So again, you can lose out on damage and have more utility, or you can double down into the damage, and he's just even stronger than he already is, and he already hit like a truck, and he already had plenty of use in PvE as well. This is just a character I have no idea why they buffed this. Rahu, you could probably make an argument if you really sat down and argued with me for 1,000 years that Rahu buff is fine, but it wasn't required, which is my problem. He is more of a menace in the mirror matchups. He's not so good into like cleave and control, but when you're fighting other traditional turn 2s, this guy is going to be insane, and mostly going into this next meta where I expect this to be really strong, they're going to see very quickly that this was not required and overkill. So yeah, and he was still a really good character, mostly with heavy investment. So The final thing that I don't get is also they decided to buff Chiaki. Why would you buff another healer? We already know that this meta is going to go into that. Even though this is a very, very minor buff, I don't really think that it's, even though this is like a minor buff, I think that this is still not required. Again, this is them really not understanding the impact of how this snowball is forming. Same with a character like Rin. I think this is a character that just needs more time to cook. I think that increasing the shield bit here is not really required, because I think this turn reduction was already more than enough if they wanted to buff her, and it would have been like, I don't know why you're doing this, but sure, because she's a character that we already saw do so well in Shiny's performance. She was kind of the standout character that forced players to play around her, and she would be even stronger in a format where you don't have to worry too much about things like revelation spam. So against traditional cleave, she is really, really good, and could be one of those kind of like, okay, sure, I'll have her, so this way I don't have to run anyone else on Lighthouse, and when I fight these cleavers, I know I don't have to worry about her getting, like, you know, removed. So they'll either pre-ban her, which means I'll have that meta, but again, I don't know how impactful that will be if you're drafting multiple healers. Marvell got a slight revert on his S3, still has all the other things that make him bad, and he's probably the weakest out of all the control characters that we have access to. So there's that. I think that they could revert a lot more on him. And then there's also Makoto. This is the final one that I'll quickly do a quick crash out on. She's already showing up in the top arena slots already. So many people are picking her up. Top players like Shoddy, Brad, and so many others, including myself, that are going to be building her. Like, she is a really good character. She did not need these buffs at all, and this is only going to make her stronger than she already is. This is similar to Ren, but on a much larger scale, where this is just not required at all, mostly because she is a S1 spammer, so buffing this S1, very impactful, but it's kind of minor. Also, the 3 speed, very negligible. Overall, I don't think that these are like crazy like buffs that are going to change the character, but they're not required. It's just, I don't know. I guess her play rate would have been low because people only started picking her up recently, so I'll give them a pass there. I don't really know what this changes, mostly because most people were only using her to cheese Aurora with Revelation and stuff as well. I guess this is a nice bonus on that, increasing the damage and the chance to inflict the defense down. But outside of that, yeah, kind of whatever. A slight revert to number 41's attack up, but again, this was really only used with speed contesting, desperation. Like, this isn't going to be here in this new meta, so I don't know why they're doing this. It's more, I guess, okay for PvE, but this was kind of more CBT, not everyone knowing every mechanic about the game, and the game rewarding you in PvE a little bit more for cleaving, but obviously that's not the case in the current version of the game. And then finally, I think this one actually could come up, is the changes to the rare Kochi. So this is his S3, and what they did is they increased the base chance of his stun to 50%, which means it technically could be an 100% chance to 50% turn meter pushback, and 100% chance, if you have enough accuracy, to stun the entire team, which could be really good. But he is one of the slowest characters in the game, so I don't know how big of a deal this will impact it. And then finally, they also buffed Golden Line. It's kind of net neutral, I believe. What is this? 5% up to 8, that's 40%, or 8%. No, it's net neutral. So it's just a net neutral change. Just makes it faster to ramp up. Doesn't fix the problems with the fact that Golden Line is just weak in general. So I don't think this is really going to change anything there. But another major one that happened was all shell skills will no longer be considered a skill. So any effect that targets or interacts with skill 1 will no longer apply to shell skills. So this, I believe, changes Lily S3. I don't know. We'll have to see how this actually impacts it. I think the only one that I think comes up right now is the S3 on Lily would no longer reset it as a skill, but I don't know if it's considered a skill or if it is just not considered skill 1, or how they've coded it now. So we'll have to wait to see, but this could be a pretty impactful one. So overall, I think this balance patch is just terrible. I think that this is just them saying we actually don't know what we're doing, and whatever data we're pulling from, it's not very helpful, because any of the top players will tell you, unless they are people who have an agenda that want Rev to be bad because they know it benefits their account. Most of the players that I've seen that are at the very top and stuff pretty much all share the same opinion, which is while Rev is very strong, it had plenty of counterplay, and overall you didn't need to do this. And most importantly, it's not even that they nerfed Rev, it's the fact that they also buffed only like the other best way to play the game, which means that now there is no counter to open up strategies like CC, and it just pretty much says, hey, turn 2 only has one thing that they have to worry about, which is CC. So I really hope that they introduce some sort of like max HP shredding mechanic or more wounds or something to deal with this turn 2 as things go on. I know Lilium's coming out, but one answer in this game's not enough. I've always said this for PvP, specifically for RTA. One answer is never enough. You need to have 4 at minimum for it to be playable, and you need 5 if you want it to be unstoppable. Yeah, that's just my opinion right now. I think it's a big L, unfortunately, but I do think that there's some good things in the other patch in terms of like the general overall quality of life. So stay tuned for that video a little bit later today or tomorrow, and it'll be a lot more positive. So thanks so much for watching. Sorry for all the nasally sounds, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.